Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Business Technologies. Before we get started today, let's talk about cybercrime, which we will be discussing in today's show. Cybercrime affects all of us. It is tax season. If you saw my recent Florida Politics column on taxes, beware. Emails, texts, even phone calls. And if your caller ID says it's the IRS, guess what? It's probably still not the IRS. The IRS does not call you. The IRS does not text you, and they definitely do not email you, garnish your wages, or arrest you, at least over the phone. If you were wanted by the IRS, you will know. So don't fall for these scams. Check with your tax advisor, your IT consultant, your lawyer, your friend, whomever, before giving away your personal information online, in a text, or over the phone. That concludes our PSA for today, and we're very excited to have Heather Kirson with the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar joining us on the Biz and Tech Podcast today. Welcome, not just to the show, but welcome to Tallahassee.
Thank you, Blake. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. Let's discuss the UFC scam screener. Let's discuss your background, what led you to the role that you have with the organization. What do we need to know? When talking about cyber scams, obviously our youth, our seniors are a big target market for hackers. We all are, but those markets need to be particularly wary of the threats that I just mentioned and others. So let's dive in.
Okay.
What can you tell us about your background, how you got here, and what we need to know?
Sure. So I've been practicing law 15 years. I've been an elder law attorney that whole time. So my background is a little non-traditional. I traveled a lot as a young person, and my experience in getting through college was a little extended because of all those travels, but that benefited me tremendously, just learning about different cultures and different ways of life. I graduated from Rollins with an English degree and didn't really know what I wanted to do. It never really occurred to me that I wanted to do law or elder law. I didn't even know what elder law was. But as things unfolded, I was able to work as an associate geriatric care manager. So I was helping people in the trenches, we say, really with all the things that you face as you age, how to get to the right doctors, how to apply for public benefits, dealing with scams, things. And I had an elder law attorney we reached out to that really transformed a couple's life that were our clients. So from that experience, I thought, well, maybe I'll go to law school. So I went to Florida A&M College of Law in Orlando, and I had a baby my second year. And then I was fortunate enough to clerk for a very well-established mid-sized firm in elder law in Orlando. So my passion really was created from that work in geriatric care management, and then seeing how much of a significant difference elder law attorneys really make in the everyday lives of seniors. So I was fortunate enough to go out on my own, and then I partnered with Patty Fuller, who passed away about 6 years ago, but we were partners for 6 years, and we created the law firm we have now. So we specialize only in elder law and get to help a lot of people, get to protect seniors on a daily basis, which is very rewarding.
That's very noble and powerful work. Thank you for your service to the senior community.
Yes, and I'm involved with this section. I have been since I started practicing, and on the PR committee, we're working hard to really get information out to the community that's accurate about elder law and how elder law attorneys can help seniors. We also have updates on Facebook. So if you want to follow us, the section on Facebook, we'll give updates on local scams that are occurring in Florida. The scams are a big problem, and we have clients every day that are affected by it. I've had my mother affected by it. My law partners had her mother affected by it. So it's very easy. A lot of people think, well, that's not going to happen to me. I'm educated or I'm careful, but it's so easy to happen. I actually almost had it happen to me with a alleged Microsoft issue where they wanted to
verify
help
your
me.
information.
Yes, and I was so silly that I even said, "Is this a scam?" I mean, I knew that it was a scam, and then I got off the phone. But I even asked if this was a scam, and that's a common thing people will say: "Are you really with the IRS?" us? Are you really with Microsoft?
Mm-hmm.
And the person, of course, says, yes, I am, and I'm just here to help you. So UCF has gotten a large grant to create a scam scanner, and it's a multidisciplinary team that's led by a psychology assistant professor, Nicole Lighthall. She's has a PhD in gerontology, and she's going to be putting together a toolkit so that primary care physicians or people that work at facilities, or even your child, if you're a senior, can have you take this quick quiz to really help you understand how susceptible you might be to scammers. The biggest issue is with elders that maybe don't have any cognitive impairment, but they're maybe living alone. They don't maybe have a lot of interaction with their family. They're at the biggest risk. And then if you do start to have some cognitive impairment, you're much more susceptible to scammers. And that's what this test is going to measure. So we really want to have people always pause. That's the big thing.
That's
when they're
huge.
asked for information. And like you said, the IRS isn't going to send you a text. They're not going to call you. Some of the most common scams, the AARP has a great website called Fraud Watch Network, so you can Google that and get onto their website. And they actually have a number you can call so that if you are concerned that something's a fraud, you can actually call AARP on their fraud line and inquire with them, does this sound real or not?
And having a phone number it's so huge for the senior population, because they're not going to be comfortable sending an email, especially if we're talking about a web-based or email-based
Sure.
or text-based threat. My mother, for instance, was complaining to me her cell phone was running slow. And I was like, well, let me take a look at it. I happened to be in Destin where she lived, and she doesn't use her phone for anything but texting and calling. And so I just looked at the browser, and she had 1,000 scam texts.
Wow.
And I was like, did you click on any of these? And she's like, well, yeah, because they said I had a free iPad coming, and I haven't even gotten the iPad. And she did not mention that until it was just a secondary part of the conversation. I'm like, Mom, you read my columns every week on cybersecurity. She's like, but I didn't know.
Right.
And so everything you're describing, I know we all can relate to. My wife's father was trying to change a flight while we were out on the patio Christmas. And we were literally watching him on the phone, and he was getting a little animated. He called what he thought was Delta because he Googled, airline assistance, Delta,
Right.
et cetera. And it was a scam number, and they were just trying to change his reservation for him and charging him $300 to do so.
Yes.
Which was one of the less devious scams out there, because they were actually going to call Delta and change his flight, but then send him a fee. So
Right.
I know we can all relate to everything you're describing. And please continue with the AARP.
Well, and some of the common scams are the tax scams. With it coming up to April, we're going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see government agencies, alleged government agencies reaching out to you.
Like
that's a common.
The Bureau of Tax Enforcement. I see their fake BOTE.
Yes.
BOTE.
Yes.
I'm like, there is no agency called BOTE.
Right. I get those at my office where they say that I'm late on filing something with the state for my LLC, but it's not a real document. So I have to myself be careful and just pause and look to make sure it's real. We also have there's a cryptocurrency romantic kind of scam where you'll think you're possibly talking to someone you think you're in a relationship with, and then
Right.
they convince you to put money into a fake crypto currency that is actually just their bank account. So that's fairly common. We have a one-time password bot scam, and that's usually where they're maybe telling you that you get something for free, like you said with your mom. That's a common one. They use that with QR codes as well. You have a free $300 gift certificate. Please click on this QR code, and it's a fake QR code. So there's a lot out there. There's many with gift cards. So recently I went to Publix to buy some gift cards, and I was maxed out. They said you can only buy this amount of dollars per day in gift cards. And I said, well, why is that? And they said, because we have such a problem with people being convinced to buy gift cards and mailing them to someone. and people being scammed.
We were talking about that in pre-production. It is rampant in the private sector. It's rampant with kids. It's rampant with the senior population. And as I was telling Hannah, a lot of traditional security products don't even pick up those types of scams if they're coming in via email because there's nothing malicious about it.
Right.
It's Bob emailing Sally saying, "Give me gift cards."
Right.
There's not a link. There's
right.
there's not anything to click. It's just a matter of being gullible.
Well, and people can falsify an email from a friend, That's happened to my mother. So a good friend of hers sent her an email. She thought it was from her. I'm out of the country and I need to send a gift to this person. Can you go purchase $300 in gift cards and send it to this person? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the friend. It looked like her email address, but it was a fraud.
Yeah.
Wires are really problematic. That's where I see the biggest problem with seniors.
The real estate industry is getting pummeled by fake wire transfers.
We're having issues with people being told to wire money and the senior believing that that's necessary and wiring $100,000, maybe all their life savings. So that's happened to one of our clients. And once the wire's gone to Singapore or to Thailand or wherever it's going, it's gone. So I have noticed that banks are more careful. Even when I'm sending a wire professionally, they will call and confirm all the information and confirm that I know the recipient. In the instance I'm talking about with the client, the bank thought they did their due diligence, but didn't find it odd that the woman was sending $100,000 to Thailand. And it was really all of her life savings.
Gosh, that's heartbreaking.
So our goal is to get the education out there because once that money's out the door, there's not a lot we can do. Obviously, we, as elder law attorneys, work with protecting seniors from exploitation, stopping exploitation. But that kind of exploitation is more related to caregivers exploiting someone or a family member, unfortunately. The most common exploiter, unfortunately, statistically, is a family member. So we can stop that kind of exploitation with a guardianship and other legal measures, injunctions. But outright fraud by criminals is much harder to stop. It has to be stopped before it occurs, because once it occurs, it's almost impossible to get the funds back.
Oh, yeah. The scenario with my wife's father, we were literally 10 feet away on the phone, wondering what he was doing. Like, who's he talking to? It's the day after Christmas. What could be so important?
And there's a lot of embarrassment and shame if it happens to you. You don't want to first believe it, that you got taken.
Right.
And then a lot of times seniors are hesitant to ask a question to their family because they're already insecure, maybe working on the internet, and don't want to be dependent on their family. So it's really important, the pause. Don't do anything quickly when you have that feeling in your gut that there might be something off.
I know there's been a resurgence of trainings this year, even though ransomware as a line item of hacking tools that are out there, was down for the first time in years, just because hackers are choosing other things like gift cards because they're looking for ROI, just like a legitimate business. But it's scary to watch what they're doing because even with the best training, even with the best cybersecurity tools, without that moment of pause, we call it the human firewall in the IT business. Are you the human firewall? Are you scrutinizing what time did that email come in? Did you hover over it to make sure it's really from Bank of America, Apple, Microsoft, the IRS, or is it just from some Gmail account?
Right.
And those types of little tricks, that pause moment, can be the difference between getting scammed and not. So thank you for that good work that you're doing to bring education to there, because it takes publics, it takes the large IT companies, it takes attorneys, it takes all of us working together to stop these threats. And maybe one day it'll be a thing of the past, but for now it is not. It is something we all deal with every day.
And our senior population contributes so much to Florida. I think that's not oftentimes talked about. We have the largest senior population in Florida of people over 65. And in 2017, older Floridians volunteered more than 130 million hours, which equates to $3 billion.
It's huge.
That's huge. They also contributed 54% or $478 billion to Florida's GDP. So we have to protect our seniors, especially with the baby boomers now aging into that age group. They have the most wealth of any age group in the history of the United States. So criminals are going to be coming after them intentionally with that silver tsunami, as we call it.
Yeah. They're utilizing social engineering. If anyone listening today isn't familiar with that term, looking on LinkedIn, looking on Facebook, looking for something to exploit. If you're a company, hey, I just hired somebody in HR. Well, let's send them a stack of resumes that's really malicious code to embed. And on the senior population, I was listening to Mark Wilson, the president of the Florida Chamber of Commerce last week, discuss that Florida is in position to be a top 10 economy in the world in the next few years.
That's amazing.
And a huge part of that is the population mix that we have here, which is huge with our senior population. And they're not just coming here to retire. They're wanting to do things, like you said, volunteering, start a new business.
Right.
So it's a fascinating time to live in Florida. It's a fascinating time to also, unfortunately, be a hacker, because with all that growth and with everything we have going on, the vulnerabilities that we see are just, it's something new every day.
Absolutely. And we see it on a lower scale. If you have a loved one that has memory loss, any form of dementia, you really need to be checking on them frequently, or hire someone to check on them, because the criminals in the neighborhood will find that out, and then they will come and say, I repaired your roof. You owe me $1,000. And the elder, people want to pay their bills. They don't want to have debt.
Yikes.
So they'll write a check for $1,000 and they'll come back next week and they'll say, you didn't pay me for the roof. And we've seen that happen where thousands and thousands of dollars have gone out the door because the elder's isolated, and the word gets out amongst the criminal population that the person has memory loss, and really anybody can go there and say, you owe me money.
And you're in Florida, where we have storms multiple times a year.
It's a common fraud.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So one of my biggest important cases to me that I feel the best about was a elderly woman who had some memory loss. So she had her homestead foreclosed on fraudulently by the HOA.
Oh my gosh.
So she had the home paid off.
Mm-hmm.
She started to have some memory loss. She was married, but her husband and her didn't live together. He lived in another part of Florida. And she sent a check for the HOA fee for $2,100, let's say. They sent the check back and said that she sent it to the wrong address. Now, the HOA the HOA company received the check,
right,
but they returned it. So she never resent it to this alleged correct address. They foreclosed on her house, and she was found living in the Walmart in her car. So we were able to get guardianship, and over a period of 6 years, we were able to get her house back, although she couldn't move back into it because it had already been sold to a third party and been demolitioned substantially. But we were able to get the house back, sold the house. We were able to get her proper care in a facility, and we were able to get a large settlement where she's going to be taken care of for the rest of her life. But that was a tragic example of the HOA knowing she was married, never contacting her spouse. They lied to the court and said that they had, or that they weren't aware of her spouse, even though we were able to prove they were aware, and that they had received the check. So she had paid her bill.
Right.
So that's one of the happiest outcomes I've had, where we've actually been able to protect her, get her enough money to take care of her for the rest of life. She's getting excellent care. She's in a small facility, like a home setting, and
Very
thriving. Nice. So although she did lose her house, we were able to rectify that legally. So that was a very exciting work. Just took a long time.
God, that's beyond a proud moment. That is powerful.
So that's the kind of work we do as elder law attorneys on a daily basis.
Wow. Do you work in conjunction with the Attorney General's office? What kind of partners do you have out there, like elder care services? Where do you engage to find help for the senior population?
So there's Adult Protective Services, which we reach out to if there's family members can reach out to if there's a concern about the elder. The problem with that is the funding for that has been substantially cut this year. It was already underfunded, so we're even less funding now, which is really challenging. So if anyone's listening that cares about seniors, you want to talk to your legislators about upping that funding again, because that's really important. We work with community agencies and law enforcement. It's been challenging to prosecute these cases because oftentimes it's hard to prove, did the elder have capacity at the time they maybe allegedly made gifts to family members or caregivers. So that's been a challenge, but the elder law section's always working closely with the AG's office to try to help. We passed a injunction bill a few years ago where you can get an immediate emergency injunctions to freeze assets to stop exploitation. And so we're always trying to educate law enforcement, work together with law enforcement and other agencies to help protect seniors.
Ashley's office does amazing work.
Yes.
We were at Florida around the same time, so I followed her career closely, and the work they're doing is tremendous. When I talked about my column about tax fraud,
Yes.
You go to their website, and the 4 most common threats and scams and fraud that are out there, fake tax issues right there. So
she's been amazing working with us and spearheading all of that. So we were very appreciative of that. There was a recent scam through a real estate a real estate company that they have spearheaded,
okay.
where they are having people charging them exorbitant amount of fees to basically own their own house. They already own it, but then signing up with this real estate company. So the AG's office has spearheaded dealing with that. And that's been very prevalent in Florida, unfortunately.
Well, on a positive note of everything we're talking about, we talked about Publix and the collegiate involvement. It really does take a village, as my wife likes to say, to fight for anything. And to see all these collectives coming together to fight cybercrime, fraud, scams, it does take everybody. The banks. It's interesting to see everyone's reaction, especially the proactive ones. The reactive ones are not as impressive, but the work you're doing is so important. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. And FSU has a elder law clinic now.
Oh, nice.
So they are training the new elder law attorneys coming up. So the clinic is helping the community, and it's an area of law that is very rewarding, and you get to make a difference every day. So I was really excited to hear they had implemented that in August.
Awesome. So before we close, let's talk about, this is just off the cuff. You were a law student, undergrad Rollins, FAMU Law. What's an average day like for a law student? How many hours are you studying? Let's go back in time and let's relive that moment.
So I was an English major, so I love reading. So I thought I had to read every single case from beginning to end that they assigned you, because there's so much reading in law.
Right.
So my first semester, I didn't do that great in my grades. Well, I did fine, but I was used to doing very well in school. But what I learned is you have to learn how to read very fast and discern and grasp the key issues out of the case law.
Right.
So as a practicing attorney, you have to do that every day because you only have so many hours in the day. But law school was a lot of reading, a lot of nervousness because they use the Socratic method. So you come to class and you don't know if you're going to be called on. And if you get called on, you're going to stand up and you're going to have to brief the assigned case law. And the professor is going to challenge anything you say because that's how we have an adversarial position. That's adversarial legal system. So that's the training you need when you go to court.
Right.
I think studying for the bar was the most difficult thing I've ever done academically because you have to treat it like a job and spend basically 40 hours plus a week just studying for the bar. I knew I didn't want to take it again, so I just did that once.
Right.
But pretty much I had very little social life. I had kids at the time, so I was very busy, and I appreciate my husband tenfold because he was very supportive and knew that I could eat and study, take care of the kids, and maybe we could go out Saturday night. But that was about it. So it's a big commitment, but it's very rewarding, and how you can help people is very rewarding, and just being an attorney.
That's outstanding. I have a lot of respect for the legal community. My lawyer is one of my best friends also. So I like to follow their career. And when I look back at my short legal career, I was a runner at Greenberg and Traurig in 1992 between my freshman and sophomore year. And I thank Mr. Ron LaFace Sr. for the opportunity. Rest in peace, sir. Greenberg and Traurig continues to do great work out there. Before we close today, what do you like to do in your free time when you're not saving the elderly population?
So I love camping.
Okay.
And my dream was to have an Airstream, and my husband got me an Airstream about 2 years ago.
Oh, awesome.
So we've taken it to Texas, Vermont, all through Florida. So that's my favorite thing to do, is to be outside and enjoy the beautiful environment here in Florida and just travel. I love to read.
What are you reading now?
Right now I'm reading a book on American slavery, which is a little bit heavy, but I'm in a book club. So that's
Okay.
the book club book we're reading. So learning a lot about that. Love binge watching Netflix and Prime Video or anything like that. So that's pretty much what I like to do in my free time.
Yeah, we just finished 1883 and The Offer, which was
Haven't
about
seen
the
that.
making of The Godfather.
Oh, wow.
Not a documentary, but
Uh-huh.
a TV storytelling tale of the producer, Coppola, and everybody at Paramount in the 70s, which was a special time for the United States,
Yeah.
especially filmmaking. And I'm reading Blood Meridian right now by McCormick. He wrote The Road, if you're familiar with
I
that.
haven't read that.
It's about Texas in the 1800s. Fascinating story. And camping, if you're ever in the Lake Oconee area outside Atlanta,
Okay.
it's a neat little part of the world. We just visited in January. So
Nice.
free travel tips today
Yes.
for everybody out there.
Yes.
Well, that is our show for today. I encourage you to learn more about the work that Heather's doing. What websites can we check out to learn more? I assume donations are accepted.
Sure.
Fundraising? We always
So-
got to take a moment for fundraising if we can. We got to protect the elder population.
So I would Google the elder law section of the Florida
Okay.
Bar, and then you can follow us on Facebook, and there you're going to get updates on local cybercrimes, fraud that's happening in Florida. Donations, I'm sure we accept donations at the elder law section. I'm not sure how that would go, but we have a task force in Florida. We accept donations for that. That's for advocacy for elders. And that's a coalition between the Elder Law Section and the Academy of Florida Elder Law Attorneys. And we meet once a week on that task force and talk about issues facing seniors and how we're going to help advocate for that. So that's all pro bono work we do, but we do accept fundraising for that, because if there's ever an issue that affects seniors in Florida that needs to be litigated, we have some funds to be able to litigate that. So,
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it takes all of us to fight hackers. Hackers are not going anywhere. So whether you're at Publix or a law firm or working for the FBI, if you see something odd, report it. Ashley Moody's office is a great place to start. And I thank you for everything you do. Thank you for joining us today. We thank you for your support. We are rolling through 2023. Look out for cybercrime. That's our closing thought today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm Blake Dowling. This is the Biz and Tech Podcast. We will see you next time. Have a great day.